Could be worse. Just wait.
Could be raining.
It'll get colder. And Kelly's gonna make a lot of money selling batteries.
Right on. As it should be.
Alternators.
Okay, we're on. It's 6 p.m. We're in the historic courthouse on Laurel Street, downtown Brainerd. December 9th, we're going to call to order our 2020 budget and levy public hearing meeting, and we'll start with roll call.
Lambert,
Here.
Stunek, Pritchett,
Here.
Bevins,
Here.
Badeau,
Here,
Erickson, here, Johnson,
Here,
Menk.
present.
please stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and one thing brings us here tonight, and that is the budget and levy public hearing. We'll start with a presentation from the Finance Director, Connie Hillman.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is the 2020 Budget and Levy Public Hearing for the City of Brainerd. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to discuss the City of Brainerd's 2020 budget and levy and to allow for public input. This is not the meeting to discuss the valuation that has been placed on properties. That meeting is held in May. However, questions regarding your valuation and classification can be directed to the Land Services Department at the county, and their number is 824-1010. The Minnesota property tax system is quite complicated, so first we're going to start with the basic timeline. The estimated market value of your property on January 2nd, 2019 is what is used to calculate the amount you pay for property taxes in 2020. There is a sales ratio study that analyzes sales from October 2017 through September 2018. This study determines the value for the January 2nd, 2019 assessment date. So once that value is established, in March there's valuation notices that are sent out. Those are the notices that say that your proposed value is going from X to Y. In May, they hold the Board of Appeal and Equalization. These are the meetings that you can appeal the valuation that is placed on your property. During this time, the City Council and other jurisdictions are working on their 2020 budget to establish their levy. In November, the proposed property tax statements are sent to your residents, and this is what you should have received a couple weeks ago. Then we are December at the tax hearing and levy hearing, and the city also sets its final levy in December. In March of 2020 is when the actual property tax statements are mailed to the residents, and the first half taxes are due May 15th, and the second half is due October 15th. So although the property tax system is quite complicated, I'm going to try to simplify it a little bit with a flow chart. So everything starts with the estimated market value of your property. In Crow Wing County, that is determined by the assessor's office. Then a statutory formula is applied to each property based on the classification, such as commercial, residential, homestead, rental, etc. The total tax capacity of the city is then determined. This is the sum of all the different parcels in the city. The city sets its levy, which is the city's income or its revenues, which is divided by the total tax capacity of the city, which equals the city's tax rate. The tax rate is then applied to the tax capacity of each parcel, which equals the property owner's tax bill. In Minnesota, it's important to remember that each taxing jurisdiction sets a levy in dollars. It does not set the taxing jurisdictions do not set the tax rate. Your property value determines your proportionate share of dollars that goes to each entity, and the tax rate is the result of the levy dollars needed and the total tax capacity of each jurisdiction. So let's look at each component of the flow chart. We're going to start with the estimated market value. This is a comparison of the estimated market values by category for taxes payable in 2020 to 2019. Overall, the city has had a 4.8% increase in its estimated market value. We continue to see a decline in the estimated market value of our industrial and commercial properties, and we see an increase in our residential properties. Now, we have seen some developments in Northtown as well as Brainerd Oaks, so it's just not the change of the existing properties, but also the increase of new homes as well. This is another look at our estimated market value for the city. Again, we have seen the continued decline in commercial and industry and increase in residential properties over the last 5 years. Moving on to the flow chart, and we look at the tax capacity of the city. Again, the tax capacity is the estimated market value after the statutory formula and credits have been applied to each parcel of property. So this shows that the city has $7.73 million of tax capacity for pay year 2020. This was an increase of a little less than $400,000 between 2019 and 2020. The impact of the increased tax capacity is that if we have the city levy, which stays the same, divided by the increased tax capacity, equals a decreased city tax rate. Now, if we look at the city levy or the city's income, how does the city determine the amount of the 2020 levy? The city determines its levy through the budgeting process. We estimate all of the non-tax revenues, such as fees, fines, local government aid. We estimate all of the expenditures, personnel costs, supplies, services, debt, and what we need for capital. And the difference between the two is the amount of the levy needed. Per the League of Minnesota Cities Handbook, budgeting is basically planning and prioritizing goals for the coming year based on experiences in the past year or years. When we look at the city's levy, we budgeted all of the operating expenditures. We do have one new police officer starting in March, so that we have 27 sworn officers at the end of the year. We're keeping our capital levy the same. We are issuing debt to make some purchases, such as the end loader and the street sweeper. However, the city believes that it can pay cash for the facility projects without having to increase the amount levied for capital. Although the city is issuing new debt, the city did have a debt issue fall off that was able to absorb the new amount needed for the new debt. The city also has other levies that are set by charter, as well as for the library and the EDA. Therefore, the city has budgeted expenditures for 2020 of $14,132,144. If we look at our estimated non-property tax revenues, we're expecting $235,000 increase in our local government aid from the state of Minnesota. So the city has $8,146,694 of non-property tax revenues. We're using $15,000 of our fund balance since 2020 is an election year, and we've been trying to keep our budgets the same each year. So this means that the city would need a levy of $5,970,450. We would need new revenue of about $75,000, or a 1.72 increase over the 2019 levy. The 2020 preliminary levy was adopted in September at $6,131,395. This is a 4% increase over the 2019 levy, or $235,823 of additional money. The preliminary levy was used to compute the proposed property tax statements that residents just received. The recap just shown indicated that the city needs $75,000 of additional dollars, or 1.27% increase over the 2019 levy. So you might be asking, why would the city council set the final levy at 4%? This is a history of the city's levy over the last 10 years. This is an increase of a little less than 4.1% per year over the last 9 years. A goal of a city could be to avoid the peaks and valleys of the levy. For example, if the city would have increased its levy in 2011 to 2013, would have been able to avoid the big spikes that it saw in 2014, 2015. It is difficult to estimate 1 year alone, let alone 2 years. 2020 itself is based on estimates. However, we do know that 3 out of our 6 union contracts are settled for 2021. So putting in a settlement amount for the other contracts and a modest increase for our health insurance, we're estimating that the proposed 2021 increase in personnel services alone is $342,968. So if the city were to increase the levy just by 1.27%, this could lead to a proposed increase in 2021 of over 4.5% if the personnel services were the only thing that changed. If there was a larger increase in 2020, could this lessen the impact somehow in 2021? If we look at how we have our budgeted revenues, we have about 43% coming from our tax levy. That means 47% of the revenues come from other sources. The biggest percentage of our other revenue comes from intergovernmental revenue, LGA being the biggest chunk at over $4.4 million. We get revenue from services and fines, as well as Brainerd Public Utilities, other taxes, license and permits, and miscellaneous. This does exclude transit, sanitary, storm, recycling, and parking lot funds because those funds do not operate on revenue from property taxes. If we look at our budgeted expenditures, 74% is for operations. The general fund includes your administration, your engineering, your building inspections. Public safety includes both police and fire, parks, streets. Then we have 8.3% for capital, about 9% for debt service, 2.6% for roads, and then 6.4% for other expenditures. So now we're to the point where we're looking at the city's tax rate. With a preliminary levy of $6,131,395, the city's 2020 proposed tax rate is 79.854%. This is a proposed rate decrease of 0.531% from 2019 tax rate of 80.385%. For every $10,000 that the levy is reduced, it is estimated reduction to the tax rate of 0.13%. Now we're going to look at the impact of the tax rate to the tax capacity of a couple different properties. A residential homestead property owner in 2019 that had an estimated market value of $120,000 paid an annual city tax liability of $752.40 in 2019. If there's no change in the estimated market value, with a 4% increase in the tax levy, the property owner would estimate to pay $5.29 a year less in city taxes. This chart also shows what the estimated tax rate would be if the levy was different as well. However, we know that the estimated market value changes each year. So this chart estimates what a residential homestead property owner would pay in 2020 for city taxes with various changes to their estimated market value with a 4% increase in the city's levy. So for every dollar that a residential homestead property owner pays in taxes, 20 cents goes to Crow Wing County, 1 cent goes to Region 5 HRA, 29 cents to the school district, and 50 cents to the city. If we look at a commercial property tax, for a commercial property that was valued at $363,500, in 2019, they paid $5,241.10 in city taxes. If there was no change in the estimated market value, they would pay about $35 less in city taxes per year in 2020. Again, this chart estimates what the commercial property owner may pay for taxes in 2020 with a 4% city tax levy with various changes in their estimated market values. If you look at for every dollar that a commercial property tax payer pays in taxes, 16 cents goes to the state general fund. That's an additional tax on commercial property. 18 cents goes to Crow Wing County. A penny goes for Region 5 HRA. 20 cents to the school district, and 45 cents for the school district.
The city rate, 45%.
Or to the city, I'm sorry, yes, for 45 cents to the city. So the next step is the final budget and levy will be adopted at the December 16th, 2019 council meeting. The levy must be certified to the county auditor by the end of December. Now this will lead us to public comment.
Okay, I will open up the public forum at 6:15. Public forum is open. Is anybody here to speak on the budget or proposed tax levy? Is anybody here to speak? Come on up. Can we help them adjust that microphone? So state your name and address, and then give us your comments.
Sure. Max Day. I live at 1635 13th Avenue Northeast in Brainerd. What was the estimated raise in taxes for a normal homestead this year? 7 point what? Yeah, you're going to go back a long ways.
Yeah, the increase in the value of homesteads, is that the
No, I'm
question?
not talking about value at this point. It's the percentage that my taxes have gone up.
Just about there.
Yeah, your individual tax statement will vary from these averages, which are always averages. They don't reflect any individual statement exactly the same.
I'm not sure I'm at the right meeting. Maybe I should be talking to my assessor, but done nothing to my property. And city of Brainerd property is up 11.5% on my property. And my total tax bill in the last 2 years has gone up 26%.
Yeah, the city has increased ours the last 2 years. The school district passed that referendum, went up pretty big last year. Has your valuation changed between 2019 and 2020?
Yeah, I'd like to sell my house for what they've got it
document?
valued at.
Huh?
I'd like to sell my house for what they have it valued at.
Amen.
Yeah, we're up a lot. And I haven't done anything to the house. Sure. Well, this is proposed, and this was last year's.
So tonight's public hearing is about the city of Brainerd's levy, and this year we're proposing a 4% increase, which may, depending on your circumstances, increase your taxes.
And like I said, mine is 12.5%.
Yeah, so that will be, with your increase in value, with our increase in levy.
Actually, it looks like the
Working
increase
together.
in the value was about 10%. And so the total taxes increased about $301. And it decreased $21 because of the change in the overall tax rates for all taxing jurisdictions, but it increased $322 due to the change in value. Now, if we look at just the city taxes for the city of Brainerd, so the city of Brainerd increased $156, so that's almost 12%. And again, it decreased $9 due to the change in the city's levy, but it increased $165 because of the increase in value. So that's the combination of the two. So you're seeing the increase more because of the increase in your value versus the actual change in tax rates.
So if they would have left your value alone, we would have given you a $10 tax break this year.
Well, I would expect that the value would go up some, but not at all what they're reflecting on the bill or the proposed.
So to deal with the value, we had the calendar at the beginning of the meeting. You'll get your valuation notice in March of this coming year, and you need to appeal by May the valuation, and then they'll send an assessor out to your house where you can offer to sell it to them, and then they'll lower the value.
And again, it's based on the sales, so it can be what your neighbors are selling like property for between this previous 12-month period.
And I have talked to some of them, and everybody in the area where I live are getting a similar raise. I've talked to a number of people in my area, and I don't know what there is about Northeast Brainerd. When I moved up there, they told me it was the armpit of Brainerd, but maybe that was because the trailer park used to be there.
Yeah.
But on Social Security, when we get increases like that, you're,
Well, you never get a 12% increase on Social Security. You get a 2% increase in your income, and then we charge you 12%.
that's right.
But, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, wouldn't it, by calling the county would help answer a lot of these questions for you too? Because the assessor would come through the county level.
Have you called and had an assessor come out?
I have not.
I think that would be well, sir, if you, because you're focusing on value right now is the biggest problem, so I'm hearing.
Hey, Jim, can you talk into the mic?
Oh, yeah, I'm hearing that value of the property seems to be the largest problem in this very complicated system that we have. So the next stop, and it can't be tonight, obviously, the county is not open for business, but I would contact soon the county assessor's office and talk to them about the value, how it's increased 1 year to the next. They've got your full record, so they can look back as to how it's happened and then can explain the impact on the taxes. But you're seeing it tonight as to what happens when you have your property tax value increased, property value increased, yields that, in this case, a higher tax rate.
The other thing the county can do, sir, is to help you make sure that your property is classified properly. Make sure that it's residential homestead, because that still can be changed. I think you have until December 15th or right around there to change your classification. So to make sure that your property is classified for its use would be also helpful.
I'm sure the classification is correct. I don't doubt that. It seems to me like that valuations are pretty subjective. I'm troubled with that kind of an increase.
Well, if I may, part of my past history is to serve as a county administrator in other Minnesota counties, and so I've worked with many county assessors. And it may seem to be arbitrary on the one hand, but frankly, county assessors are really given very precise instructions as to how they go about increasing taxes, or I'm sorry, increasing property values, or decreasing, either way. And frankly, what happens periodically is the Minnesota Department of Revenue will direct a county assessor to increase a broad class in certain jurisdictions, such as a township or a city, because they review all the data collected by the county assessor, and then they'll see whether it's in equity with other like properties in neighboring counties. So there's a very thorough process, and I can't explain the full thing, but it is reviewed at the state level, and the local assessor has limited powers as to what he or she might do. Now, in the individual property itself, that's another discussion point. Why does my property that I live, my 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, how does that compare to somebody that's 6 blocks away or on the other side of the city? And that's where you can have a frank discussion with the assessor, and I'm sure they'll be very happy to review all of your history and see if something can be or needs to be involved, somehow changed.
Mr. Chair. Sir, do you have a number that you can contact them? Or are you familiar with the county?
For the county assessor,
Yes.
I do not have it.
That number would be
There it is.
824-1010.
Okay, let me write that down.
So they'd probably be far more helpful than what we can today. So.
Okay.
I appreciate your hearing my gripe, I guess.
Oh, we're glad you came, and it looks like you might be the only one here to talk tonight. Dave?
You know, I appeared before this astute bunch here a number of years ago, and I was as much shocked tonight as I was back then, because I was the only one then that came. And
Maybe there's a reason why they're in December in Minnesota.
Yeah.
and just a word, if I could.
Yep.
The handicap door was not opened. I had to yell at a guy coming across the parking lot, and he came and opened the door for me, which I appreciate very much. But I would think you'd have the door open.
Do we unlock the doors here, or the county leave them unlocked
You
for
unlock
us?
the front and back doors, but
I thought that they could come in from no, but then they couldn't get up the stairs, get to the elevator.
I know accessibility has been something that we've been trying to address as a body continually, so it's always good to hear when there are
Yeah,
deficiencies.
let's add to the checklist, making
door,
sure the
yeah.
handicap door is open.
And it was cold out there.
Yes,
Oh,
it
I
was.
bet.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Dave?
Yeah, the only one little small thing I wanted to add was that it is a good point that although, you know, his property is increasing, we have increased taxes. And we need to remember that every percentage we increase is money that is being tacked on to people's taxes. So as we're going through this process, I know we may only be looking at 4%, but every single percent counts. So I just want to make sure we remember that, as though, you know, in this we can say, oh, contact the county, but in the very end of what we're doing here, we are still making a decision to increase
We're
taxes.
increasing taxes by over $200,000.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that comes from the taxpayers.
Exactly.
Is anyone else here to address the council about the budget and levy? Anyone here out to discuss the budget and levy? Anybody here to discuss the budget and levy? Seeing nobody else, I will close the public forum at 6:27. And with that, I have a motion to
Mr.
adjourn.
Okay. We had a motion from,
Pritchett,
I'll second.
second from Lambert.
okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Mr. President, if I may, it's just one additional item, has nothing to do with your business tonight.
Yep.
But we do want to wish you your very best on this very special day in your